another Toolbox Tuesday. It is Tuesday, June 15th, 2021, and today's segment is going to be about coming out, more specifically, identity formation. As what has been the case with all of the segments this month, this segment is dedicated specifically to people who work with or treat or spend time trying to support people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, questioning, all of the above. So today I'm going to talk about why it's important to come out, or what some of the benefits are. So like, what does someone have to gain by disclosing their sexual or affectional orientation? I'll talk about a few of the models, as well as like their benefits and their critiques. I'll talk about the role that intersectionality can play in supporting or disrupting the identity formation process. And then I will also spend some time talking about some interventions that you can do to help support this process and like assess for whether or not it's even appropriate for that to even happen. And the reason why it's important to assess whether or not coming out is appropriate or when it is appropriate is because there are certain risks that someone who is rejected for their sexual orientation, the risk for certain things goes up when that occurs, which is why it's appropriate to assess for whether or not it's appropriate for them to come out first and then support that with your interventions. Right, so it's a little pro tip right there. So first and foremost, why come out at all? So there are some benefits to coming out. There's some psychological benefits, some biological benefits, there are some social benefits. So psychologically speaking, when it comes to access to a full identity or a full personality, that means that there's also access to a lot of other skills that can be utilized to build a happy, healthy, and meaningful life. Healthy identity formation is definitely something that has to happen in order for the Maslow's hierarchy of needs to be met at all. Biologically speaking, the stress that is relieved from successful coming out or identity formation means that some of those gut issues gets relieved, some of the physical components of anxiety and depression gets relieved, and then when it comes to like culturally and socially, coming out means that you also have access to like a broader community to experience broader artwork, broader music, broader food, broader ways to experience love, broader ways to experience closeness. Things get a lot less vanilla when people complete or start to actively work on the process of solidifying a queer identity. The challenges that come along with that, though, include the increased risk for rejection, and when rejection and shame are present, so are a lot of other maladaptive and hurtful coping skills. Also, coming out means increased risk for violence and other kinds of discrimination. And then there are also the financial consequences that come from all-out rejection that are a very real part of the coming out narrative for a lot of people. And so that right there is why it's important to kind of think about the various intersections that are at play when it comes to someone's identity. So example, you have a queer patient or someone who's coming to you for consultation, and they're black, and they are specifically lesbian. Right? Like those are the demographics of the identity that we will start off with. Let's say that we find out that they have a master's degree. Let's say we find out that they make about $85,000 a year after taxes, and we find out that they are married and have 3 children. Automatically, what are some of the challenges that this person is up for just by disclosing their sexual orientation? All right, so excuse me, they're married to a man. Boom, that's the complicated part. So what challenges does this person face because she is black? because she is a woman, even before acknowledging the affectional or the sexual orientation of lesbian. So those components of that identity have some strengths and some limitations, right? So there's the bias, but then there's also the post-traumatic strength and growth that comes from assimilating them. And so those are the things that have to be assessed for and tailored and like grown while you are working on whether or not it's appropriate to come out. So there are a bunch of models for identity development. And right off the bat, all of them have the same limitations in that their populations or their sample sizes were relatively relegated to the Caucasus population. So we can't really say with fidelity that all these models are completely representative of the full queer spectrum. We don't know specifically that the first model that rose to fame, the Cass model, which was the one that kind of like got the dominoes set, or like pushed the first domino for like these models to form. But Vivian Cass only did her research on gay men in Australia. And so given that environment definitely impacts the way that we develop, we cannot say for certainty that the Cass model or the McCartan-Fassinger model or the Troyden model are definitely like generalizable to the full population. I don't know that those models generally or genuinely express what identity formation would be for me or for any other people of color. But with that being said, as it turns out, some folks decided that they were interested in the experiences of gay white men in Australia. And so when that happened, it really did pave the way for some more research into the coming out process and the successful identity development for people who are queer. And so now we get to read in our scholarly articles that there still needs to be more research for people of color, there needs to be more research for trans people, there needs to be more research for people who are ace, and so on and so forth. But basically what they're saying is like we have to wait for either people who are these identities to get up into academia, or for some of like the straight people or like the white queers to become interested enough in this process to research it themselves. But I digress. This is what we have, this is what we use, and we let our own good sense and our clinical experience help us tailor these models for what is appropriate to like what's being presented in front of us. Yes, the struggle is real in that regard, absolutely. But some examples of some identity development models are the Cass model, Troyden, McCartan-Fassinger, Weinberg, Williams, and Pryor, and Morgan and Stevens in 2012 are the pioneers who gave us a model that was specifically for people who are trans. Thank you. So the thing that these models have in common is that they do take a stage-wise approach to understanding this process. So for example, the Cass model, the Troyden model, McCartan-Fassinger, they all have stages that discuss how someone who is queer kind of formulates and assimilates their identity. So we've got some awareness, some comparison amongst community members and activities, tolerance for the new identity, some acceptance, some pride, and then some integration. And then, so a bunch of the models have some variation on that. So Cass's model was a 5 and then a 6 stage model, and then other models kind of combined some and made it a 4-stage model, or expanded on some in some places and eliminated in others, making it 3-stage models. But really, the biggest concern, the biggest issue with these stage-wise models is that it makes it seem like there are tasks that have to happen that you can go from one step or one stage to the next in order to kind of tailor or create or design identity formation or coming out. But what the real case is that each of these things, the awareness, the tolerance, the pride, the comparisons. These are all processes that have to happen. And sometimes they happen one at a time, sometimes they happen together, sometimes they happen forward, sometimes they happen backwards, sometimes they happen in secret, sometimes they happen very publicly. And so that's really overall the problem, or like the illusion that comes along with stage models of identity formation. And then also consider that these processes have to happen also within the context of ethnicity, within the context of age, within the context of gender and sex, within the context of how these things are also expressed. So these things also have to be considered when you are weighing the stress that one of your clients might be under during the coming out process. So environment, school-based environment. What's the risk for bullying and abuse there? At home, what's the risk for bullying and abuse there? Are your clients a part of strong church or faith-based communities that have queer identities as a form of taboo? These also have to be considered when you are weighing your strategies for how you're going to help and care for these individuals. So, one of the things that is, or you know what, like interventions, legit interventions that will be super duper helpful is to expose your people to the fact that there is actually a diverse community of capital Q queer identities. So one of the things that a lot of folks struggles with is, am I the right kind of queer? Am I the kind of queer that will be okay, that will make it, that will live, that will survive, that will be unscathed? Or will I be the kind of queer that's like bashed on, beat on, or somehow in totality rejected? So exposing your clients or the people that are consulting with you to the fact that there is a diverse and thriving and healthy queer community or population, using the internet, using video resources, using comedy, using the fact that like there's queer comedy, queer television networks, there's Noah's Ark, Queer as Folk, Ellen, all of these things are available that you can utilize to showcase the fact that like, one, there is no kind of like need for isolation or secrecy. You can kind of like soft land in the fact that this is not like something that's only happening to your client. So it's one of the first steps in normalizing the fact that, yeah, this does happen to a great many members of the population. Even though the number is statistically small, there's a bunch of us out here. And so that can be one of the techniques that you use to normalize it is, you know, show it in the media, show it in literature and in artwork. When working with families, sit down and watch TV shows together instead of shying away from the shows that have open queerness, instead of kind of turning the channel or kind of putting distance between it, kind of move closer and just kind of anteing up to the fact that it does happen. You are likely to see someone who is queer in your school. It's not just going to be you, there's going to be someone else there likely. Also, support your child, support your client, support your patient in entering these communities as they feel comfortable. So pair them with meetups or alliances or like one-to-one friends. Social supports, super duper important. So I definitely say number one intervention, especially when you're doing your biopsychosocial assessments, identify the Fab Five right away. Whatever you want to call them, your golden girls, your hoes, your bros, whatever you call them, your ride or dies, your homies. Identify 5 of them right off the bat. These are the 5 that you can go places with. These are the 5 that you can talk to about things with. These are the 5 that you can call or text and talk shit to. These are the 5 who stick up for you in front of other people. These are the 5 that you want to stick up for when other people want to roll up. Identify these people because these social supports can absolutely be a foundation to open up a lot of other interventions that might be otherwise unsafe for someone to do by themselves. Right? Like, you're not going to send your newly queer client to a gay bar by themselves for the first time ever. You're going to send them there with their Fab Five, right? That's a very specific nuance that you gotta watch out for. So like, yes, queer bars in the neighborhood is a thing, but also given the other risks, don't send them there for the first time all by themselves. Send them there with their crew. Oh, Pride Year and merchandise. So yeah, displaying Pride colors, displaying like your Safe Zone stickers, displaying that is great, but also do a really good job of incorporating it into your language and normalizing it when you are having your sessions. Excuse me. So if you're getting caught up on words like body parts or sex positions when you're doing your assessments for sexual risk, and you sound like you're scared of these words, it definitely can come across some type of way in your sessions. So definitely become okay with calling things what they are and learning some queer language and using that appropriately. And then also get to learn your slang, right? Like, so learn what we mean by Tina and all of these other words that we use to talk about things that are specific to our culture. That is a great place to start, and that is it for this week's Toolbox Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching, and come back next week.